Who thought it was a good idea to put a cow? What? I knew I should have tested to see if the music was good. Whose idea was it to put a cow in the courtroom? Alrighty. And so we continue. It's been a couple weeks, so I might be a little rusty, but we'll do what we can. I have considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury, and I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant the guilty of this crime. The accused had left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? I love that smack. Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening even with a direct hit. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Considerably more tangible arguments. Okay. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. Fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means, I'm afraid, that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. What would even be tangible explanation here? Who stabbed the woman, and how? Those 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard. But Mr. Naruhodo, you have to do it. Otherwise this will really be where the trial ends. So, no pressure then. It's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination. I presume you're prepared? Yes, my lord. 2 smacks. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say, Mrs. Garrideb. I have the book that disappeared from the Garrideb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. Must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find, using every technique I've learned in my short career so far. Okay. It's the fourth case. I can figure out some, like,
Hold it!
But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book, in fact, belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point when the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said. It's not exactly how I put it, no. Anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver is about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I've nothing witty left to say.
Hold it!
So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight on your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I am a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see, modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? And not at all extreme. As I see it, any overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man that has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony... An overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. So despite 1 or 2 minor puzzlements, I do declare the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know? So I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'm glad you admitted rational there. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, right? Can it? But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, you see. But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point in even having windows, huh? Counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we need to have a new theory for the other lady. Prove the window was open for this guy. But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb.
Retro Squeeze raided my stream with 5 viewers.
Hello! Hello, how are we all doing today? Let me see. How do you do shout out? Hey Doc, how you doing? What were you guys playing? Fire Emblem? Ooh, nice. Oh, head swap mod too. Cool. Well, welcome to the stream. We're currently trying to change the jury's mind on finding our client guilty. A gakening. No, that's Fire Emblem Gates. Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. Yeah, we have, actual human person, Soseki Natsume. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garrideb. Never mind you that. The point is we were just having a jovial little dispute. Nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it wasn't anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Alright, well, we'll see about that. What about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Garrideb's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. I doubt we're gonna get much out of these guys, but... You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If you don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. Situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, do you know, it's funny, because I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Don't even go there, Miss Sasato. Must be some way to jog his memory about this. You gave me the sneezes. Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry? What's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? What? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake. To celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that's a common custom here in Great Britain. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but the candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. But how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, you had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. My caught a terrible cold. I think I was slipping into Irish there. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in the hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. Something about this old man's story is playing in my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street. Mr. McGilded is back. Once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. All of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. You need to pit them against each other. Yeah. So, the old man mentioned he had opened the window because there was a fire in his house.
Objection.
The two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. Yeah, what say you say? Speak up, lad, speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of the winter. Why, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garadeb household. And Mr. Garadeb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke.
Oh, my.
Shots! 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 Everybody!
Excuse me.
Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garadeb. Oh, dearie me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? All right, then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It'd be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruto. You managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garadeb's formal statement.
Hold it.
The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garadeb told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. In times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as you well know. I really don't. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it.
Excuse me.
What is it, juror number 5? What's your name again? Do we have your name? I feel bad that I don't know your name. I've remembered what it was. The memory I'd blocked out. Ah. It was listening to what this granny was saying that brought it all flooding back. Granny, hold on. She's 38. Cat, I'm sorry, but you're a gilf now. I don't make the rules. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garradebber, the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just got back home after work, like. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost the day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear. Stuck to the wall next to me, it did. About an inch deep. Oh my god. Are we gonna fucking indict Mrs. Garradeb in this? No words. Just terror. I could smell it then, you know. That god-awful stench of the Thames. I was sure I was gonna end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Okay. We don't have time to unpack that. Okay.
Hold it.
Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right. She was chopping meat with it. Had a tidy edge on it, believe me. Still, it's all memories, isn't it? Started with that smile she threw at me when we were courting. Since then, the list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, then a glass, then a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, a cooker, a bathtub. Your wife must be even beefier than you. And things came to a head last week when she threw me. Me. Right into the Thames. Still, she's not so bad when she's calmed down. She's a little sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with in this country was thought up by some clever lads who'd been tossed into the Thames many times by their wives. That's a very interesting theory. I think we now have to pin... or pit. I didn't...
Objection.
I kind of like it. It adds some, like, extra depth to the usual, like, just cross-examination. These two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. You mean they don't contradict? Juror number 2. Do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the 4th book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garrideb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrideb household onto the streets below. And what's that now? After all, Mrs. Garrideb could have thrown any number of different objects at their husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What is it? Really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make. I haven't had any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman. I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that was found its way from the Garrideb household to the scene of the crime was... I want to examine this. Right, it was the other knife that had the initial on it.
Take that!
Juror number 4, Mrs. Garrideb. What? What now? I must apologize in advance for this. But I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Ah. Good Lord, Counsel. What on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged in the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrideb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who'd been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Even my missus ain't got good aim like that. Yes, I admit, there are many details we don't yet understand. But that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now. Mrs. Garrideb, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh! She's dead. My lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman? I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. On together now, ladies and gents. Juror number 6. You did it. Oh, congratulations. So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a member of jurors' leanings have changed. Two jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of the court is now divided, and this trial will continue. How does the prosecution wish to proceed? I do not. But I will anyways. This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, the defense has just poured a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond. But let me start by insisting that you must all familiar yourselves better with the relative positions of the places being discussed. What do you mean by that? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Geradeb household runs a rather wide street. Which means that the distance from the Geradeb's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards? That's around 14 meters. It's a little farther than I'd imagined. And, as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having pretentious significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. What if she bent down to pick it up? Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife follow a near-identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. The prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense, yes? Go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea a fantasy. But what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. Do you think she ever wrote Sherlock Sholmes fanfiction? To that end, juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Geradeb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive, a cross-examination of a juror? They're still here. Well, this is highly irregular. Some precedent for the member of the jury to be summoned to a witness stand. My leg! And unnecessary. Oh yeah, she's definitely done Sholmes X Wilson Yowie fic. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth to it, then the oath of burning book and jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Sir, I don't think he's alive. Yes, sir. Constable Rowley Beat, reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they're so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rowley, my hero. You make me swoon. My wife, I think, fell over. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. No. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb. Believe me, a London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sah, the windows on the top floor of the Garrideb house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Top hinged casement windows. It was not in the police report. Yes, sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. I just arrived here a few days ago. I found it. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's room. Alright, I'll try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it opening? Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife would have thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane, and fallen straight down to the pavement below. See the problem, then? Good. Your education in windows is complete. There is never any possibility of either the book or knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted. Ooh. Already. That can't be. See that, Mr. Rolly? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. If you go drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. It's hard to get a read on him. Oh good. Another desperate situation. It's very hard to get a read on him, so I don't think I really have an opinion on him yet.
Hold it!
Can you say that for certain? Very good question. And the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all of us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? Can't say I remember. Yeah, I thought it was a passport. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that is why I stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you a Bobby's good for his word. While rubbing my tired eyes, admittedly. Sir. Oh, Rolly, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb? Ah, I see, sir. Should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? Absolutely, sir. I will answer it to the fullest of my abilities. There's a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one more thing. I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London Bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal, but I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll try. Alright. Let's take a look at this. Policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his lot of bees. Patrolling officer expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they were discovered. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. I don't see how that helps us.
Hold it!
So the windows don't open fully, they're just there to allow a bit of air through the house. Here's the location where the objects would have fallen. Okay. Would have been so hard for someone to mention this top hinge casement thing before. Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garredeb's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, it's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday. I love her. I mean, she's very nice, and you're a very lucky guy. Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry. You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. You really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rowley's Beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that street, Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rowley's Beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat. Huh? Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with the interviewing the occupants of the Garredeb household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close, then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garredeb household is on your beat, does that mean the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garredeb's house? Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is my part of the beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we'd have never been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But that's the life of a Bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are Bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. I don't know if tirelessly is the right word. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rowley for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll take care of it immediately. So, so they're saying that this part, like, I'm assuming this over here is his beat, and this isn't. I think I'm just a little confused on that. So, like, this is part of his beat, which means he would have to look at the pavement over here. Like, this is where the... Are we trying to say that the crime was done over here? Turbo Scout, thank you for the follow. So... I'm wondering if that's the way we should be taking this. Like, sure, if the windows were... Like, could she have... Yeah. But for the body to be found over there, could Rolly have moved it? But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, you see, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Sorry? The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to an answer to the question? If a flaming book had crawled across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Let Rolly be an inspector, I would have said. 3 times, at least. Of course, well, with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the skies before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. As sure as the night sky in London is starless, sir. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her.
Hold it!
Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. Oh, if it had been on Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box at every beat. So Rolly told me the way. Only, I sort of got a little lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewilching to me. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, please. So, I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. But like I said, my Rolly was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but true Bobby is never really off duty, sir.
Hold it!
Nothing to report? That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time. Never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. I swear on the odds honest, sir. Really? That seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir? Strange, sir? Seems altogether regular to me. The burnt copy of The Lion's Pride was originally in the Garrett household, so the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Ah, could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping the book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hands from the moment we arrived on the scene. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. 2 mysteries of how that knife ended up in the back. How the book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I wasn't really. I mean... Please. Just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses. I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. Beach, I'll allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but Rolly won't. Duly noted, Mrs. B. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could you possibly be about to say, I wonder?
Hold it!
Mrs. B, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did, that evening. I saw it clearly. The little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. And I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction? Oh, yes. Well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross. What?
Excuse me.
Constable B, is there a problem? Yeah, no, sir, no problem, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, sir, yes, sir. I was just remembering that the same thing happened in that evening, that all. That all? I feel like my fuck-ups with reading it are very, like, in character for this guy. You mean Mrs. B lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine, but she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. Oh, Rolly, you're such a tease. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly's so romantic. He saved up for it with the farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Oh yes, but that was just between us. No talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. Mrs. Beat, the bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add the details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. Like a bouquet of flowers? Like, are we on the same thing here?
Hold it!
You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on? Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again. But the thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Oh, is he gaslighting her? Like, oh, honey, your sense of direction is so terrible. Ah, ha, ha, ha. That's right, silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Although, I'm gonna blame the bouquet this time. Can't think how it got there. I really can't. The bouquet somehow moved from one side of Briar Road to the opposite. Curious indeed. Isn't it? Well, the worst of it is, I forgot to pick up the bouquet again when we left the scene. The beautiful rose roll he bought me. With what change from the gutter he spent so long collecting. By bouquet, do you mean this sorry solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for my anniversary, with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zykes, where did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garadeb household. Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was only found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Can I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. Just a single... Oh. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial. Do you hear me? I want it back. Good grief. Rest assured I will do my very best to not forget. Ah, God damn it. So he didn't take his eye off the crime scene for one moment. At the crime scene...
Objection!
You claim, Constable Beat, that there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene. That cannot be. What? What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to the beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby.
Objection!
Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road, where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry bloom can so be described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street, back to the gutter where it belongs. Meager?
Objection!
But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Rolly didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garadeb's book. Mr. Garadeb's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat Bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street, but in fact was actually found here on the opposite side of the road, in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless someone deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Rolly's done something wrong. Don't listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says, wittering on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garadeb's come around. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garadeb, but deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason.
Objection.
Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Yet no one bothered to get her up. Tell us, my learned friend, who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception. V, I feel like you're a little bit. I don't want to like nitpick with you. Like, I feel you're a little bit too on the nose with, like, if the body was on the left side of the road, Rolly would have had him immediately drop his anniversary plans.
Take that.
Obviously. It's only one person it could have been. Because, you know, if it was on his beat, he would have had to, you know, strive peace, any crimes. Yeah, he must assist with initial detectives. It's okay, Cal. Constable Rolly Beat. It was you. A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense! Why would Rolly do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. That 15 minutes you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. Your Honor, he's straight. You're making it up. It's all nonsense, all lies. What about the Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it.
Objection.
If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped the bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene.
Objection.
First, you make accusations about the landlord and his wife. Now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim the crime scene was tampered with. But there is only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime. To hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there. That's all. So why would he have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering. And until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty as your soul. Soul. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you're mistaken, I'm sure I need not to point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide where the victim fell. That is what this Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everyone has been led to believe. But in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponese friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening?
Take that!
But that's on the opposite side of the road? I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Gurodev's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mrs. B, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious!
Objection!
Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard. But these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. And there was typical London fog on the ground when you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid. That was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. The constable overlooked one thing. What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Zyke said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond, Constable Royal... Fuck. Can I try that again? And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond, Constable Rolly Beale? Fuck. Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Oh, Rolly. It isn't true, is it? What the lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream. A terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything come out. Everything exposed. Only, it seems, it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly. What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Rolly, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it? She's not dead. Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to uphold the good of people... Fuck. As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London Town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation. For everything. I have a possible explanation. For why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman? And yet, Lord Van Zykes, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel of the defense, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you had better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions.
Take that!
I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I've only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I've learnt that, though honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on his beat in all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young Bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. On account of this bouquet, my lord. Oh yes, it was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife. And was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal. When he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of them, what must have gone through the man's mind? Looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. This is a warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Constable Beat, is that or is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's all right. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh. Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on the Constable Beat's beat. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you have done? It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. A criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When the crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight, of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of a crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then, when I opened my mouth to speak, it just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat, so you have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Mearsham Street and then... First time I've ever cursed God is a hard-ass line to come from Rolly Beat. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted... that one night to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. So you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street, to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought... Well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon? No, of course he did. Otherwise, my Rolly would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. Ah, I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Rolly. And can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from one side of the road to the other in total? Oh, 4 it was, yes, definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Gardeeb household, of course. But what made you place the book in the victim's hand? And all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. What do you mean? When you first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You sure it was this book, A Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However which way you look at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it at all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zykes? I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir, what will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you're free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late. Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. Alright then, my love. One last thing, Constable. Sir? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Ah? Never again, sir? You mean to say? Leave. Now. This trial is not yet over. Sir! Barrack Van Zykes? Are you... Aww. He has a heart. Quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire crime scene like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume, is the only person who could have committed this crime. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, But I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Van Zykes, is this true? Very well. Name the person, if you will. And if further investigation was warranted, the prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request a cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it's imperative we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb. Oh, dearie me. That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garadeb, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garadeb. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of opened hinge casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garadeb. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? You never answered before, you just passed out. Ah. Fuck you. Lama Chi. Also, Erica, look, it's you. And Chubby Maid. I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? Yeah, look at those cheeks. It's you. And it's Lama Chi. And anyway, the man over there in all that regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
No. I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4. Oh! Make no mistake. You jurors are not special in any way. You're not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madame, let the truth come out. But that's just a common or garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garadeb? Now, you listen to me. Oh, that was... Hold on. Gamers, uh-oh, we have an error, ew, grow. I forgot to put her name with the text box there. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. What happened? Oh, the poor woman. So, yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife, if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop. Do your worst. Well, Mr. Naruto, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zykes. I'm gonna have to testify? Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. Oh, dearie me. So I demand your full and adult... I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garrideb. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. I like this judge. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. So we're all on the same page here. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here, in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garrideb, and I'm a juror and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided to your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madame? Yes, my lord. I'm really hoping Mr. Natsume or Saseki-san doesn't fucking die. You'll tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh, dearie me. Oh my god, look at her wiggle. Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Oh, I didn't know you were here, John. Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But what about your knee, dear? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John. I presume you're Mr. John Garrideb? Yes, sir. Former second lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action, now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Yeah, well, yes. Quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. I do like the sort of contrast between Mr. Garrideb and Mr. Beat. Yes, on the day you're referring to, my wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set the fire to the carpet. Soon had it out, though, and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd noticed if 1 or 2 went missing, I'm afraid. If that bally thing in the victim's back was really one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. See, that's why fucking in the stream announcement, that's why I was like, couples therapy. Sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Things like may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. Oh, do I not have the...
Hold it!
The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garrideb. A rather passionate note, in fact. But Mrs. Garrideb found the note, discovering her husband's little secret, and she gave him a mighty number of slaps on the face for it, too. What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. He's absolutely gormless. I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency to not drag it up. And besides, half of it was wide of the mark, anyway. A likely story. These waters run very deep. And with what transpired next after these multiple blows to the face? The fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it? Bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. Just so happens there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. How most precarious situation you put yourself in. Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Had to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you needed any, you see. The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night. Although, that little mustached Japanese man buys waters in bottles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all his income to buy books. Well, anyway, the point is, I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Even though the room was on fire? As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How did she know I was thinking that? I was thinking of that too. So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items you threw at your husband that day? In all honesty, I don't recall, but I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, a sponge, a napkin.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garrideb. Oh, don't shoot. I'm sorry. Beg your pardon? Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit with every bally. Good grief, woman, we're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dearie me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened, hmm? Your pipe, sir? Joan, where's my pipe? Had this thing in my hand at the usual time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did. Yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see. The pipe was broken. Garrideb Field? It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something truly solid. Anyway, I managed to bandage the thing up for now. You are one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? That is a smooth animation. This is important. Defense believes Mr. Garrodeb's remarks just now to be of great significance.
Objection!
The Spore veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and the pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Van Zykes, are you fucking taking the piss now? Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me. There you go. Is the fucking tip of the knife gonna be in the goddamn pipe? Except the gentleman's pipe as evidence. Garfield? My brother in Christ. Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. As I saw it, something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this? I eat swan. It's what I do. A tiny fragment of metal. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. Tip of a blade? Surely, it couldn't be. This is the tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garrodeb's pipe. Looks like the tip of a blade or something. Tip of a blade? Something wrong? I don't really know. It's just something, but I can't put my finger on what it is. Can we put them together? Oh, look here, Mr. Naruto. Just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. Could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this? It's a tiny fragment of metal that we found inside Mr. Garrodeb's pipe. And just maybe, it's a perfect fit. Somehow, I just knew it. Just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Sasato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it. We already did, bitch. 5 steps ahead of you. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim?
Objection!
Presented the wrong thing. Fuck, there goes my perfect record. It's the only panic-stricken look I know.
Hold it!
Do you care to elaborate? Nothing to say, really. Rather partial to a spot of carving, you see. Pipes and whatnot. Fishing tackle, you know, that sort of thing. It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets too, and when there's my leatherwork. Sorry to say, we're always losing knives about the place. And we have dozens of the things. They sell them at the market sometimes. 20 for the price of 19. Needless to say, I snap them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at mealtimes too, instead of a knife and fork. Now, Joan. We don't want the people thinking I'm some kind of savage. Here we go with the scoldings. Why are they being so evasive? Imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. Can't bear the thought that it might have been one of their knives that injured the victim. Which is entirely understandable, of course, but still. I'm at least glad that the tip of the knife isn't in the victim still.
Hold it!
So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof. Even though there is no other credible possibility of Mr. Natsume's incident? Forget my Japanese friend. It has yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack. Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting. But you mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists? Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. But for now, we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion. Okay, so use the knife tip on the last bit.
Objection.
There it is. Mr. Garrideb, can I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? Used to call me Dead-Eyed Dead back in the resume, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does, dearie me. It's rather wearing being asked about every other letter in the word. You must be very dizzy. Ooh, that is rude. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of the blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garrideb's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of stabbing on Briar Road? Why are you doing that? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. Oh, his poor pants! I can see his boxers. Appear to be rather good. Is that the only back shot we've gotten of them? Also, is she on a stool?
Take that!
This is a knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece at the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim. No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garrideb's pipe. Ugh. Good grief, Lord Van Zykes? I don't believe it. A knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal. They're a perfect match. Good golly gosh. Yeah, she's on a fucking crate. It is Erica. Hardhar. Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So Van Zykes has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garredeb's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. It's hit by something pretty solid. Oh, dearie me. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mr. Garredeb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garredeb and instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good lord. Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside his pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1! And yet there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out the open window. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garredeb's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear, oh no!
Objection!
Shots! A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nepentese approach to bottling his argument. Sorry? But after all, it is just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see... Boot! It's spoilt by an insurmountable inconsistency. What is this inconsistency? Inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with a knife planted in the middle of her back. Ah, poor guy. That's right, you silly little man. Oh, it's gone. Now, Joan, old thing, what are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. I know what it is! The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife struck her and fallen from above, it'd be in her head. Yes. That's exactly right. If the knife had fallen on her from above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, he's lost for words. Look, I can explain it. I know it. The book fell first. She bent down to pick it up. The knife fell and hit her in the back. She got trick stabbed. If the theory has even one consistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. You're so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. But now the way has been blocked completely by just one simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency, and the theory will stand. Miss Usada. You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all. And your mind went blank. But if the path you are on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to this lies in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. It seems you have nothing to say, my Nepentese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tact acceptance of your theory is fatally flawed.
Objection!
This inconsistently doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. I love that he's still objecting even though his head's in his hands. It means I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Hey, Shake. Yes! If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There is a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. I can explain how the knife from above could have pierced the victim's back. You already have the answer. Goodness. Utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency. Final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. It's the fucking book. This, the fourth book found at the scene. The final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Garrideb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene of the crime in the first place. Photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all know, it was a police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. As part of his wholesale transplanting of the crime scene. But it was in her hand when he first moved it, which is why he kept it in her hand. As part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. But what made you place the book in the victim's hand? Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. I feel like we need to have, like, a tally on screen for each time I change someone's accent or voice. In other words, the victim had already picked up the book of her own volition. And clearly, that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd been doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? By Jingo! I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh, dearie me. We know the book that fell from the top of the floor of the Garrideb household on. We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garrideb household onto the pavement below, at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, exactly at that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw. Yes, Mrs. Garrideb, what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down. Oh, she's so cute! I love her! And picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens. And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right. She's not dead. Facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over, picking up the book, the next object fell from the... Fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. Then she Family Guy funny post died. At the same time, walking by chance directly behind Mrs. Green was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume. It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the darkened fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above. Ah! And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb? The very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Poor Mrs. Garrideb. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book, and I threw the knife as well. John, dear, it's all right. I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry? Oh, I love them. Even on his bad knee. Well, this is a very feel-good case. Lord Van Zykes. What news of Mrs. Garrideb? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events had left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There's no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could have easily have been a terrible tragedy. They all have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will gain consciousness soon. It's strange. You've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. How wonderful! The woman is out of danger, it seems. Oh no. It seems. So, Mr. Saseki Natsume. Yes. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it is me who should be begging your pardon. Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure that the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she had been killed too. Suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me. Poor Saseki-san. His imagination really has got the better of him. Yes, poor man. So when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should have never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I managed to create a rift in the relationship and trust between our two empires. And for that, I am truly sorry. Aw, Mr. Natsume. One can indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. Or mishaps. Mishaps. We were befooled by this spirit. and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zykes and our young lawyer here from the East, my brother in Christ, I'm the one that came up with this. Lord Van Zykes was just being a pain in the ass the whole time. Why does he get to be mentioned first? That chain has now been broken, and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh! Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord. In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings, to the court? As a foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. Sitting in for the old bean while she's out of action, you know, but I know what her decision would be. Does this mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Oh, I love his voice.
Not guilty.
Can you imagine if... Oh, I'm gonna bet there's a twist where there's gonna be, like, the prosecution does a summation examination. Very well, Mr. Soseki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you...
Not guilty.
And finally, Mr. Natsume... Oh, yes, Lord Sir? You are now a free man once more. It is my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh, yes, sir, of course. On my life. I swear I'll never step foot in a courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. Oh, Locum. Wait, you mean me? Of course! Is there another Locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last, I'm free, I'm free! Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Heady, heartily happiness, hurrah! No, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. Would it be so hard just to say that, then? Locum, you did it. You saved me from the brink. Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault, after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that! Lovely, loyal Locum lawyer. Yes? I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. So every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear. I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. I'm sure you're just fucking crazy. But today, you Locum lawyer, gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench, before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beam of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born." Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work? Ah, there you are, my dear fellows. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I am glad to say. Oh. The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. It just finished. What? No! Then my haste was in vain? Arrgh! It's you! Airlock Sholmes! Oh? Have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume? The man you had arrested? Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or of that prison cell. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming. This is all your fault, Airlock Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you, I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Ah. Had she been taken to the hospital more urgently, I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We're but human, after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Priceless. Oh, I am sorry, really, but that was quite priceless. Poor Soseki-san. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And, it would seem, you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits, and now by the Reaper. Ah, Lord Van Zykes. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. It will be alright, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I will protect you. Ah, fuck me! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. As much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Mrs. Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan? Yes. Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh? It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I've visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. That's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or, in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse? That's not it at all! The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san. Could be an interesting read. And what about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry? What about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your stashed compatriots? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London. And only now does it feel like we finally have found our feet. And you're accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? That's right. But we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room? Ah, but what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up for with a floor, a ceiling, and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit. Oh yes. Tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. We'll think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me?
And they were roommates.
Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up in the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of? Oh, this is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to taking lodgings in the great detective's office's attic. I'm too overcome for words. So suggesting we look elsewhere is out, then. Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you, and yes. Wonderful. Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long. Somebody's happy. Locum, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we're gonna have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. Oops. But Locum, we will meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer. My brother in Christ, you have like a... What's your record at... is it 2 for 0, technically? And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. He wasn't the lawyer in that case, though. I have little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Soseki-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home. 221B Baker Street. They got garlic. So this is to be our new office. Yes. Our office? I rather like the sound of that. Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. I think it's getting late and my throat is hurting. Oh my god, he's hot. Mr. Sholmes, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it. Good. I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. Oh no! Wait, no, they can't kill him. He's a real person. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. Oh my god, the sexual tension. You could cut it with a knife. Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at these premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. Sorry? London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights casts the darkest of shadows. Shadows? What do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So once again, Mr. Naruto. Welcome to London. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of murk that lay behind it. Oh. Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. Alright. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. And then we can do... Let's see, what do we got for escapades? So is it just up to 6? Oh god, we got 3 of them to do. Alright, I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. Stream will probably go for like another... wait, no, Tucker doesn't need a walk. I should get this Medi replaced with Yuria. Although it is a very nice Medi. Absolutely love it. Anyways, I will be back. Just give me like 5 minutes. I've returned and I have a special guest. Come here. Onto my lap. Puppy. His collar is less jingly, so you can't hear him quite as much. But there is a Tucker here. And he's such a good boy. He's such a cute boy, isn't he? Aren't you a good boy? My smelly baby. Baby. Maybe I should get Art of Swan with you. Wouldn't that be cute? Or should it be me? Like myself, Sona. Alright. Down you go, baby. Okay, you went down a little hard there. Love you, baby. Okay. Oh. Alrighty. Okay, let's see if I got 3 through 6. Oh my god. Okay, I think we might do 2 now. Because, like, doing 4 of these in a row might kill me. This is 1 week after the trial. Ugh. Here we are again. Every time we visit here, the atmosphere in this place seems to get more and more overbearing. Just think, we could be at home with Mr. Sholmes and Iris having a nice, cozy breakfast. But we have a duty to report the outcome of the case, especially since we're guests here in Britain. So I'm afraid this visit couldn't have been avoided. I suppose not. But is there even anyone here? You could hear a pin drop in this place. It's too solemn for its own good. It is very quiet, isn't it? The only sound is the ticking of the great clock as it keeps perfect time. What was that, I wonder? The usual comforting sound of the clock seems to have been joined by a less comforting shuffling around. You're right, something's disturbing the rhythmical ticking. Sounds rather like an unfit middle-aged man running from pillar to post, clumsily. What are you calling unfit? Oh, Inspector Gregson. What are you doing here? What am I... Isn't it flaming obvious? 58 seconds remaining, Inspector. Arrgh. We'll have to talk later, sunshine. Good morning, Lord Strongheart. Wow, he's really looking fiercely at his pocket watch today. And good morning to you. Business so early in the day? Though, yes, well, I mean, it's about the other day, we are to deliver our report, Lord Strongheart, as our dealings with Mr. Natsume are now over. Ah, yes, the little Japanese man. I've already cast my eye over Van Zwijk's report. I must say, the outcome surprised me. Thank you for a job well done. You are too kind, my lord. It's not here, it's not there, it's not over there either. I hope you don't mind me asking, but what exactly is the inspector doing? He's been herring around between these bookshelves, looking beside himself with worry. He's looking for a particular work. The Lion's Pride. Now, there's an all-too-familiar title. I heard it was popular tale, so I obtained a copy from the rental library. However, it wasn't able to maintain my interest, so I soon cast it aside. I happened to notice a vacant spot on one of my shelves at the time, so I duly stowed the book there. Unfortunately, I no longer remember where that was. It's not there! It's not here either! Come on! Where are you lions hiding? The book is due back today, so I've asked Gregson to locate it for me with his investigative prowess. Inside 5 minutes. I must say, I've never seen anyone working so hard to find something. It's like a man possessed. Ah yes, that's because his month's salary is staked upon the outcome. At whose instigation? Let me guess. The stony-faced lord. And the 5-minute time limit? What's the significance of that? There is none. I'm simply fucking with him. Oh. By your own admission. I can't. My feet are killing me. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up, Inspector. Which means that next month you'll work unpaid and have no days off. No days off. Holy shit. Gumshoe is treated better. There really are just so many books in here. It's overwhelming. Some, perhaps. I purchased every book, new or old, on the subject of law from all over the world. Wouldn't have believed a few short decades ago, a place like this couldn't have existed. What do you mean? When I was a lad, no one ever dreamed of buying books. Oh, I see. Western books are such luxury items, I suppose, with their leather covers and fancy bindings. Nah, that's not it. There was a tax on paper, see? On paper? Yeah, I mean, it was abolished about 30 years back now, but it used to be the case. There was a tax levied on any kind of paper. So obviously that meant most folk couldn't afford to buy books at all. Ah, so that's why places like the rental library you mentioned before came into existence, Lord Strongheart? Indeed. Vestiges of paper tax system, you could say. The general public considered books as items for hire. London is home to a vast lending library of some 3.5 million books. You couldn't hope to read all that, even if you were reincarnated 10,000 times. Even I would choose to rent a book rather than to purchase it, if I knew I would read it infrequently. The subject of tax has actually surprised us already in the last few days. Came up in Mr. Natsume's trial. It seems like the window in his room was filled in due to some kind of window tax? That would be true. Fortunately, the window tax was abolished here some 40 years ago. Sadly, in the East End in particular, many windowless houses remain. Britain's always had a bit of a thing for tax and stuff. Whatever they can tax, they tax. Sugar, salt, tea, coffee, you name it. Candles, beards. Wait, sorry, what was that last one? Did you say beards? Did you used to have a beard? The beard tax. Never heard of it? Never. Why should people have to pay money just because they let their facial hair grow? You may well ask. I suppose it's because it makes them look self-important. The Naruhodos will have a strict family policy of no facial hair, I think. You can relax. The beard tax was confined to the annals of history long ago. Even so, it's clearly something the British still really love. Paying taxes, I mean. Paying them. Got that back to front, sunshine. But you can't deny you've had a lot of funny taxes over the years. Never find anything like that over in Japan. Would you, Mrs. Hato? In actual fact, I'm afraid to say that you would. What? No. You don't mean... Surely there's never been a window tax in Japan. No, but there have been similarly obscure taxes. For example, in the Edo period, there was a frontage tax. It was a tax not on windows, but on the entrance to properties. The larger a property's entrance was, the greater the tax that was levied on it. Even today, some mansions survive with extremely narrow entrances due to that old form of taxation. So you Japanese are as twisted as us Brits. But we never had a beard tax. I mean, that's really going a step too far. Well, no, that's not true. I'm not aware of any taxes for beards, at least. What do you mean, at least? Well, rather than tax them, the shogunate did once prohibit them outright. The ruling class prohibited beards? It was called the Great Beard Prohibition. It was an Edo period edict. But why did the powers that be want to ban beards? Because it makes people look self-important? Just an idea. It would seem that rulers in the East and West have had very similar ideas over the years. There have been other unusual taxes in our history, even in our current Meiji period. For example, though it was before either of us were born, there was a rabbit tax. There was a tax on those adorably fluffy creatures, like the ones who make mochi sweets on the moon. Yes, and it was an extremely large tax, too. The government demanded extraordinary sums of money. Like, I'm very terrified to, like, actually quote this to people as fact. But, like, this does seem very legitimate. This just gets stranger and stranger. What was the reason for that bizarre tax? Well, after Japan opened its doors to the world, there was an unprecedented rabbit boom in the Meiji capital. Boom? Yes, keeping rabbits became hugely popular, and new species were traded at exorbitant prices. People were even swindled out of all their money for exotically colored rabbits. Like colored chicks, I suppose. Hard to imagine, though. Rabbits are so timid and quiet. Wouldn't have thought one could bankrupt you. So in response to this worrying social vogue, the government imposed a rabbit tax. Suppose they couldn't just ignore the problem. And it worked, because the rabbit boom came to an abrupt end. 6 years later, the tax was abolished. Well, I hate to say it about my own country, but Japan is strange. But there's more. After the rabbit tax was abolished, then of course, society reacted by launching straight into a second rabbit boom. Oh dear. Government didn't think that one through, did they? Your ideas about the world are very much altered by the position you hold in society. If you're responsible for the running of a country, you will feel the need to raise revenue keenly. Without a stable taxation system, the whole country would go down the drain. Well, yes, I suppose so. Some of these taxes... That's precisely why ministers of state use their wiles to invent new and novel ways of taxing the public. If you were one of my country's statesmen. Yes. What novel tax would you impose? Pray, give us something truly original. Inside 5 seconds. Think of something that everyone uses. Really squeeze every penny out of the population. Your time is up. So, what is your answer? Air, maybe? Yes, how about air? An air tax, you say? Oh, well done! A truly novel and fiendish idea. Well, everyone has to breathe, so while the population's inhaling air, my government is inhaling money. Blimey, you're a tyrant at the heart, eh? A somewhat radical solution to a country's revenue problems, but sadly not an original one. No! You mean to say... Surely not. You mean a tax on air has been imposed in the past? It was last century. The finance minister of our neighbor France proposed it. What? If I ever go for a visit, I'm holding my breath. Unsurprisingly, it was strongly opposed by the public and soon scrapped. The minister didn't last long either. Yeah, the French have a way of dealing with people. Though clearly that would have been an untenable situation. The public at large are a force to be reckoned with. Don't I know it? How about you, Inspector? What new tax would you impose? Let me see. My first thought is a tax on objections. Sorry? Been hearing far too many of them recently in court. There's a particular lawyer I have in mind as it happens. So I think an objection tax could be very handy. Good to see you don't allow your personal views to influence your work in public office. I reckon 5 pence for every objection raised would be about right. A most amusing proposal, Gregson. A most unamusing proposal, my lord. Well then, I think it's your turn now. Sorry, my turn for what? Why? What else? to locate my copy of The Lion's Pride. It's on one of the shelves in this room. Of that I am certain. Now, I shall give you 10 minutes. And let's stake your student stipend on it, Fail to find the book, and you forfeit next month's payment. Objection! Your time starts now. Oh, and one more thing. I believe you just said the word objection? Kindly leave your 5 pence over there before you begin combing the shelves. This tax is gonna be the death of me. I do like it. This is the next week. Good morning, Iris. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. Oh, morning, Susie. I'll get breakfast on the table for us all. Ah, Mr. Sholmes. Morning. Come now. Why the long face? Oh, sorry. The thing is, I just had a rather strange envelope posted under my door this morning, with some rather strange things inside. What strange things? Ooh, what is it, Runo? Do I catch the scent of a mystery in the air? Nothing so exciting, I'm afraid. It's just 5 orange pips. Can't imagine what could possibly... What? Orange pips? And 5 of them? What's the matter with you? It's a bit of an overreaction, isn't it? An overreaction? You don't understand. It's a warning, a notice of imminent danger to your life. What? To my life? What is the meaning of all this, Mr. Sholmes? My dear fellow, why do you make such an inquiry of me? Because the name of the sender was written on the envelope, and it was yours. Oh. You're right, Runo. It says, sent by Sholmes, envoy of hell. So my little ploy has been exposed. Well, so be it. Cast your mind back, if you will, Mr. Naruhodo, to the time of our dining last night. Oh yes, Miss Usato cooked Japanese food for us. Indeed. In particular, you may recall the final norimaki sushi roll I was about to savor. That is, before you swooped in with your clacking chopsticks and filched it from under my nose. Oh, I assumed you'd left it because you didn't want it. I left it, my dear fellow, because I had planned to enjoy it as my very last mouthful. Surely you must have noted my interest by the subtle dilation of my right pupil. Perhaps a clearer sign would be helpful next time. Just an idea. In summary, the post you received earlier is a notice of impending revenge. You should be quaking in your boots. Really? Because I went straight out into the garden and planted them. I hope we may grow some exotic fruit. There's no point sending a notice of impending revenge if the person you send it to doesn't know what it is. Well, I knew, of course, because I've read this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews. Oh, yes, of course. It's finally been published, hasn't it? Here, it's selling quite well. It is! 12 short stories in 1 volume. I've earned a lifetime spending money already. And it has further bolstered my name. In fact, only the other day, a Bohemian king sought to engage my services. Really? That's extraordinary. Of course, the gentleman persisted with some penitence about being a fishmonger for the duration. But only a fool would presume to be able to deceive my eyes with such a charade. So how did you know he was a king, then? Why, there was no mystery, my dear fellow. A distinct smell of fish accompanied the man's lowly apparel. Although he tried to hide it, the left side of his mustache quivered in a quite manifest manner. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. That's simply brilliant. Having neatly resolved the case for the man, I was sent a quantity of fresh cod as a mark of his appreciation. I think perhaps you shouldn't discount the possibility that he actually was a fishmonger. Is that... Can anyone else smell burning? Oh, yes, you're right. And look, smoke. I think maybe... Fire! Fire! There's a fire, everyone! You must all leave at once. Everyone out of the building. No, wait, I have to go back to my room first. Are you deranged? If you're not asphyxiated by the smoke, the flames will burn you to death. But my Daruma doll. I can't let my Daruma burn. It means too much. Drat, sorry, but I'm gonna make a dash for it upstairs. Haha, oh Runo, you're so funny. There's no time for jokes, Iris. Go, quickly, get out of here. But there is no fire. I mean, there is one right behind you. Is there, Hurley? Huh? Ah, what a delight to see that ploy enacted in the flesh. Wouldn't have dared to dream I would be so lucky. Indeed, indeed. Indeed it was a ploy. A devilment engineered by my puckish spirit. It was all a trick. But why? It's a simple experiment of the mind, Mr. Naruto. When his life is threatened, a fellow is compelled instinctively to protect that property to which he attaches matching importance. After your own life, Runo, the most important thing to you seems to be your Daruma doll. Let's not dwell on that, shall we, Iris? So, you knew all along that it was a trick? Yes, of course. The very ploy is described in this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews. I've used that device quite satisfactorily in the past to solve a case. Oh yes, it was a great success, wasn't it? But then it became something of a habit, didn't it? You started yelling fire at every crime scene. In the end, people started to pay no attention to you at all. Yes, that's true. There was a time when I was known as the Sholmes who cried wolf. I think there's a lesson to be learnt in there somewhere. Sadly, my little ploy failed to yield results this time. Iris was utterly unmoved. What do you mean? Well, I was anticipating that Iris would immediately expose her secret hiding place. The location of the nest egg that she must have cached somewhere in this room. Nest egg? You think Iris has some secret savings? Why, naturally. The book is selling like hotcakes after all. It is a simple deduction indeed to conclude that the profits must be concealed here within these walls. No, Mr. Sholmes. Are you in need of money? Ah, I bet I know what it is. Is it that new microscope that's gone on sale? Isn't it, Hurley? What else? I have such a strong desire to own one, yet my purse is 1 pound too light. And no offer alone has been forthcoming. I have forced and resolved to an alternative stratagem. Sorry, Hurley, but I'm not falling for that. Not coming from the Sholmes who cried wolf. How vexing. You really shouldn't be trying to steal a 10-year-old's savings, you know. My book is full of little tricks like that, you see? The army of the great detective. Except that in this case, both the orange pips and the fake fire fell a little flat, didn't they? Oh, I have plenty more tricks up my sleeve. Take, for example, the case of the Boscombe Valley mystery. I'm already filled with dread just from the title. It is a tale of extraordinary skill on the part of the great detective, the skill of tracking. Tracking? When I arrived at the scene of the crime at the eponymous valley, there were footprints everywhere, but my eye immediately were drawn to one set in particular. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, your detective instincts are truly remarkable. As you know, my dear madame, no detail, no matter how small, escapes the scrutiny of these eyes. So I tracked my quarry, following the trail of his footprints all the way to the man's place of residence. It led you directly to the culprit's house? What a triumph. You misunderstand. It led me directly to my own house, my dear fellow. For the footprints were, in the final analysis, those made by my own shoes. Hurley had left there for Boscombe Valley as soon as he received the telegram about the case, you see. And then he followed his own trail straight back here to Baker Street. Now, Iris, please. You make it sound almost a humdrum, but I assure you it is no easy feat. Tracking of this nature is a skill possessed only by the great Sherlock Holmes. You're right, it really is extraordinary. Quite so. Extraordinary is the word, and let it be the last on the subject. Anyway, Needless to say, I subsequently went on to solve the case with various other deductions. Yeah, it's the various other deductions that I'm interested in. Ah, well, you shall have to read the book then. I'm sure Iris has penned it with her usual flourish. Oh, absolutely. I put an ingenious spin on the great detective's exploits. It must have been very ingenious to make this man sound even remotely credible as a detective. Wait, does it smell like something's burning again? We've had enough devilment for one day, Mr. Sholmes. Put your puckish spirit to bed. I assure you, this has nothing to do with me or my spirit. Oh no, the smoke's getting thicker. I mean, it's not a trick this time? There really is a... Fire! Fire! There's a fire, everyone! Susato, where are you going? Stand aside, Mr. Naruhodo. What are you... Mr. Sholmes? Why'd you just chuck that busted Napoleon on the floor? Oh, look at that. Looks all the broken porcelain. Coins! Sovereigns, in fact. Worth a whole pound each. Come, everyone. We must leave at once. Evacuate the building. You fell for it hurriedly. Hook, line, and sinker. Wait, you mean Iris? Certainly would have guessed that's where you'd... I certainly would not have guessed that's where you'd hidden it. Fuck. Do you mean to say that this smoke was... My own puckish spirit needs to come out and play sometimes too, you know. Of course. I know what it is, Iris. It's that indoor herb garden set that went on sale last week, isn't it? That's what you're after. I want one so desperately, but I'm 4 pounds short. Even though you told me you didn't have any money to spare before. If I knew you had a secret nest egg somewhere in this room. You've outwitted me again. You really shouldn't let yourself be outwitted by a 10-year-old child, you know. So, thank you for the loan, Hurley. Oh, but wait. What's the matter? Where's Susie? She disappeared. Oh yes, that's right. She ran off up the stairs before, didn't she? Oh, what are you all still doing in here? We have to evacuate. It won't be long before the fire is... Ah. Sorry, Susie. Children will get up to mischief once in a while, you know. But it's all perfectly harmless. Harmless, maybe, but oh so devious. I wonder if I could make an Iris costume in Final Fantasy. Oh well, at least nobody was hurt. Apart from Napoleon, and my secret hoard. Now, tell us, Miss Susato, what is it that you went so fleet-footedly to catch? Sorry? Oh, no, nothing. This is just... No, this was nothing. Susie, that's your notebook detailing all of Runo's trials, isn't it? It's bulging at the seams. Ah, a testament to the various people you've helped over the past months. Miss Sato, Well, I am your digital assistant after all. I would do anything to ensure the safety of these records. Even risk my life, if necessary. I mean, it's very important to me. It's like a diary of everything we've achieved together. I'm getting all teary-eyed now. Yes, in stark contrast to a certain someone who would have fetched his Daruma doll, I must say. Or someone who would have, like, killed Napoleon. Alright, that's gonna be it for me today. My throat hurts. What's the wait time? Oh. Oh. Alright, that'll be it for today. Pardon me. See, I'm still fully expecting the finale to be like a twist where it's like, aha, we got Rise from the Ashes too, baby. That was a fun case. I like that there was no bad guy. It's all just a big misunderstanding. I hope the Gyarados aren't in like too much trouble, since it was an accident and the woman ended up okay. Sippy. My last sippy. Alright. No one for me to raid, so I hope everyone just has a nice night. Where's my throat go? Me. Next stream will probably be Monday. I'm not sure if we'll be starting the next case immediately, if I'll want something to like buffer between it, but good work today, everyone. Hope you all have a nice night. Remember to take your medicine, drink water, get to bed at a good time, and I love you all. I'll see you next week.